I'm leaving the city behind today to do some off-roading in GTA Online. It's time to jack up the suspension on these trucks and air down those tires. We're testing for everything you see on the screen there. Draugur versus Kamacho. This is going to be an awesome battle, and there are a lot of strengths for each of these cars. I love off-roading in real life. If you saw my first video, you know I try to keep things realistic. So if this is your idea of how you want to go down a mountain in GTA Online, video may not be for you, but there's cinematic video throughout the whole thing. Split screens because it's a stock boy video, all sorts of good stuff. One thing I want to point out, just because a car gets up an obstacle quicker in a split screen doesn't necessarily mean it'll do better. I'll talk about that more as the video goes along. Why can't you get up the hill, Draugur?
What the f, dude?
This is really simple stuff. Hopefully, oh man, there we go. Hey, we did it. Hopefully this isn't a sign of things to come, because it gets a lot tougher, and the Draugur is already at a pretty tough obstacle here. We're going over all my favorites. This one I like to call the crazy crack. You got to get that tire up on the ledge on the driver's side, and it just can't quite get there here. We're a little bit stuck, so we're gonna have to go around the easy way. That's a little disappointing if you're a Draugur fan. Not quite as I was expecting, as you're gonna see once it gets down there. So it does make it. But there are a lot of cars, a lot of trucks I should say, that'll make that. The Kamacho, if you watch my first video, I said there was one car that can do this the right way. Well, here it is. This thing is just an absolute monster, and even though that's maybe not that pretty, we got armor on the trucks for a reason, and it goes straight through. So, all right, I hear you. We're going to give a second chance to the Draugur. Why not? We're going to see if it can do it here. I know you're saying it's better. We'll find out. Well, it does kind of squeeze its way through, so hey, there's some good news. The Draugur did make it through the right way, but if we're going to give the Draugur a second chance, we got to do the same thing for the Kamacho, right? Well, I give it way too much gas, and that's a bit of a rough ride, but it's maybe a little bit better than the first one. So the Kamacho is 2 for 2. The Draugur was 1 for like 4, so not great, but that's okay. That's only one test of a lot. So we're going to see how these guys can handle going down a massive incline. Control is really important when you're off-roading, and this is essentially a cliff. Well, in GTA, these things have a ton of traction, so some of this may not be totally realistic, but I do want it to be the toughest challenge I can come up with. You can see a lot of control from both of these, but the Kamacho actually speeds up a little bit as it gets closer to the bottom of the hill. The Draugur is able to maintain that control all the way to the end, so that's impressive. Now we want to look at some more climbing. These are the boulders. We got to get up on those rocks. Well, I'm going to have to fast forward this. Oh, come on, dude. Get up there. Get up there. Here. Hey, here we go. All right, we're on our way up. The Draugur struggling a little bit to get up to the top of that boulder. And we're getting there. We're there. And we're on our side. So that's not great. That is not the goal when you're four-wheeling. That's not great. Watch how it's done here. The Kamacho is going to show you how it goes up the boulders, and this thing is just an absolute tank all the way up to the top, no problem whatsoever. That's an insane angle, and this thing can just stay there forever. It's completely stable, totally fine. It's going to back up. Well, we smashed our skid plate a little bit there, but hey, that's what that armor is there for, right? So far we got a couple climbing tests in, one descent. We've got some good testing going on. We want to see how these things do in the water. This isn't really the big test. I'm not expecting any problems from either of these cars here as we go to the big incline. And as expected, they both do just fine. They've got plenty of ground clearance. That's going to help a lot. But we're going to give the Kamacho a chance to go up this massive hill first. So we went down a cliff. Let's go up one. Here comes the Kamacho, and it just makes that look so easy. No broken traction, nothing. Just all the way up the hill. Absolutely perfect climb from that Kamacho. Let's check out the Draugur. It's getting stuck a little bit. It's getting stuck a little bit more, but it's not really an issue. It still gets up just fine. Don't let that scare you off of the Draugur. We got a lot more testing to come. Biggest test of all, do the lights work? Do the aftermarket lights work? Well, on the Kamacho, it's an absolute yes. On the Draugur, the lights on the roof aren't working. I don't understand why Rockstar does this, but in this car, at least, or in this truck, at least, they work at night. So it's almost like a daytime running lights type situation. Whether I like it or not, they do work. They just only work when Rockstar wants them to work, or at least that's how I see it. That's how I figured it out. we're going downhill again. This is our second of the downhill test. This one not quite as steep, so not expecting any big surprises, but we want to see how the Kamacho does on a smaller hill. And it does well. I mean, it handled that pretty much perfectly, but then you have the Draugur on the left side just showing off. I mean, that's the definition of crawling. That's what you want to look like. Going through some actual water, the big hole here. We're over the doors in the Kamacho, and it just plows through it like it's nothing. That Draugur has a snorkel, shouldn't have any issues here, and it doesn't. It gets right over there just fine. I will show you this, though. I wanted to test the snorkel, and I went a little deeper in the small hole. And you can see here, we kind of stop, and yep, our tires are still on the ground. That thing died. So, a little disappointing that the snorkel didn't work. I mean, in real life, you're probably not going to want to go that deep anyways. So you can swim, just don't go too crazy swimming in either of these cars. They're about even when it comes to water. I just have to say, I love the way the Draugur sounds. It's absolutely awesome. It's fantastic what they did with that noise. But we still got some climbing to do, and this is the final incline. So this is the big one. You're going to see exactly how much elevation we make up in the next couple of minutes. It's really impressive. That Kamacho is just annihilating this first hill, but this is where it gets really tight. The Kamacho is a huge car. So truck. I keep saying car. It's a huge truck. It's got to make its way through there, and it doesn't have many issues. Now we're going to see how the Draugur handles the first part of this, and it's doing pretty well too. As far as climbing hills goes, the Draugur does really well. The biggest thing with the Draugur that you're going to see here as it continues this climb, well, the throttle's a little too sensitive. So you can get where you need to go, but it has so much initial acceleration that you can kind of struggle, and it kind of lurches you forward maybe if you're not familiar with it, you're not expecting it. So you see, we almost somersault backwards there because I did it. There are some areas here where you have to be really careful, and it will be just fine. You're not going to get stuck on these inclines. It's just a little bit different. The thing is kind of made for speed, it feels like. It still does okay, and it still climbs really well. But watch the Kamacho here for the difference. The Kamacho just looks a lot smoother as you're going up in some of these sections. You can kind of get it to lurch forward a little bit here and there as you're fighting for traction, but for the most part, the Kamacho is smoother. And when you're talking about four-wheeling, that's usually a good thing. You don't necessarily want a ton of power right away to send you flying off a cliff. So I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but the Kamacho is really strong, and I know a lot of people maybe thought this video was a little insane. As you watch it, look at how high we are up there. As you see it finish that climb, I think you can maybe appreciate that Kamacho a little bit if you haven't already. Looking at the Draugur, though, I'm not anticipating any issues here. It's going to handle this just fine, and you might see it like you did at the beginning of the video. You got a little bit of dirt kicking up there because it loses a little bit of traction because it's got a little bit too much power. But for the most part, it's a great car. It sounds phenomenal. It climbs well. It doesn't crawl great. We're going to look at the score. You see the Kamacho I actually have ranked over it. You might think I'm crazy. You're probably going to hate me, but I already explained that for the most part. The other thing with the Kamacho, it only costs $350-ish thousand in the game. It's a huge bargain. It's a phenomenal car. If you don't have it, you need it. If you got the money to spend, go ahead and grab the Draugur too. Thanks so much for joining today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did and you're not already and you're still here, feel free to subscribe to the channel. I'd love to see you around. Thanks again. Hope to see you next time.